Let's reinstall the shear panel in an Aston Martin DB9. In this episode of Aston1936.com, I'm going to show you how to properly reinstall the shear panel underneath the car. So we're under the belly of the beast right now. This shear panel, as you saw in another video, it'll probably link right up here. I took it out because I was putting in a secondary cat delete kit. But installing a shear panel needs to be done properly. This is a structural part of the car. You don't just kind of wing it back up there and hope it stays. One of the great parts about our DB9s is that they're terrific handling, and part of that handling comes from a very stiff chassis. So the engineers at Aston decided that because the transmission tunnel was here, this actually makes the floor a lot less stiff. And what they designed was this shear panel, and this panel is a plate of aluminum, and it bolts the right-hand side floor pan to the left-hand side floor pan, sort of in this fashion. And it stiffens up the chassis from being able to twist and torque. So we want to get it back in properly and torqued up right. Now, one of the things they go out of their way to mention is to not reinstall this panel if the car isn't evenly level and supported. So if you jacked it up from, if you imagine just at one corner, the car would kind of be twisting up, and you take this panel off and then the car settles a little bit. And then if you put this panel in and torque it back up, it's actually going to lock that twist into the car. So they say you need to either be up on 4 jack stands, nice and level, or up on a lift, nice and level. So we are. Just make sure you are when you're putting this back in. So we're going to get this back up in the car. It's only going to take about 10 minutes to do it. And let's get started. We'll just need a few tools to reinstall the shear plate. We need a T30 Torx and a T40 Torx, the same we used to remove. It'll be useful to have a ratchet and an extension. The extension is just so you don't bark your knuckles while you're putting the bolts in. You're going to need a torque wrench that you can set to 20 Newton meters. So I'm using a 3/8 inch torque wrench. Inspection light's always handy. And the one supply we're going to use is a little bit of Loctite thread locker blue. This is 242 blue. And we're going to use that just on each of the 6 shear panel bolts. We want to be absolutely sure they don't come loose since they're sort of a structural part of the car. So a little tube of thread locker blue will be helpful. So now that we've got our tools figured out, there's one step we need to do before we start putting the bolts back up in the car. These are pretty heavy duty Torx T40s, but I want to use a little Loctite 242 blue on the first few threads because I don't want these coming loose. They're a structural bit of the car, so the first thing you're going to need to do if you're going to Loctite something is you want to make sure it's clean. So I've just got a shop rag here and a little throttle body or brake clean, and I'm just cleaning up the threads as best I can so they're nice and clean, factory fresh. And I've already done the others, so I won't have to bore you here. And then I'm going to apply the Loctite now. So we don't have to slather the whole bolt. We just want to get a drop on the, I'm actually going to, so we've got a drop on the first few threads there. That's all we need, and it's all the way around. And I'm just going to do each of them now and fast forward. All right, we've got all our 6 bolts coated up. Now it's time to get this thing back up in the car. Now remember, we've also got these spacers that we have to refit while we're doing this. All right, so first thing we're going to do is get the plate offered up. and I'm not going to put any spacers in yet. So I'm just going to pull the flange down. There's this big stud, which we kind of have to work our way around. And again on the other side. So we're loosely up in place. And I'm going to grab spacers now and just loosely work them into where I think they need to go. And I'm going to start the first bolt just loosely. Second bolt. All right, now I'm going to get the middle spacers. Now it's not going to hit me in the head anymore. Fourth bolt. And at the back, we also have to kind of get it around this heat shield. Just a little bit, both sides. All right, so with them loosely started finger tight, I'm going to just run them up by hand, snug. So now I'm just going to do a light snug with my ratchet. Center ones first. And an end. And then this end. Okay. So the torque spec for these is 20 Newton meters. So whenever you're tightening a panel, it's best to start at the center and spiral out. It allows the panel to flex out as you're doing it. So even though there's only 6 here, it's probably not essential to do it, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's simple enough. The last bolts we have to put back in are the 2 aerodynamic panel bolts we took off. And these I use the critical torque spec of snug. All right. Well, that was a pretty easy, 10-minute job to get that properly reinstalled. The Loctite's going to set up. These bolts are not going to fall out, and my structure's, back and torqued up again. So easy enough, anybody could do it in their garage up on jack stands. So up here you'll see my next video. It'll probably be something to do with the secondary cat deletes. That was kind of fun, and we'll see what kind of horsepower those add. Down here you'll find the companion blog article that'll relist the torques and the tightening pattern here. If you enjoy articles like this, please subscribe to get automatically notified when the new ones come out. And as always, please leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.